Hey everybody, it's Kairos. Today we'll be analyzing gameplay from the Rank 1 Rengar in NA and possibly the world, the infamous Scrubnoob. We're going to go through a full game from his preseason grind, and I'll break down parts of his decision making and macro so that you can step up your game and control the map like he does. If you enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. Now let's get started. So starting off, we'll try and diagnose where Scrubnoob wants to play towards. Top is kind of a weak side early on. Kayle versus Camille. Kayle doesn't really have any gank assist, and the main purpose of that lane is to just not let Camille snowball, not give her outplay potential, and just get the Kayle to late game where she can carry. In the jungle, he can pressure Amumu early, but has to keep track of where Amumu is after level 6 to make sure that he can actually find picks and not get locked down and CC'd from 100 to 0. Then in mid lane, Lucian is going to be pushing the Sylas in because he does have the range advantage. So range versus melee, that means Lucian's going to be pushing. He has the ignite, so he's looking for a kill. And Sylas actually has decent gank assist. He has some gap close and some CC. And so that's a very volatile lane that Scrubnoob will be looking to get ahead. And then in bot lane, there's not really much going on. There's not a lot of gap close or a lot of crowd control between the supports. And so that's not really a super volatile lane. And so I expect that he will just play around mid quite a bit. And now I want to point out a few things he does for clear efficiency in the early game. And in every game that I've watched, he starts at red buff, and at 123 will jump Q onto the blast cone to start off with 2 passive stacks. And he'll take W second and full clear the rest of his red side, and W helps him to stay as healthy as possible on the AoE camps, which are Krugs and Raptors. And this actually got buffed in patch 10.25, so his sustain is even better now. And then he will also kite camps as far as possible when finishing them off if he has stacks, to make sure that he keeps his stacks on his passive up for the next 8 seconds while he gets to his other camp, so he doesn't lose any stacks because they fall off after 8 seconds, then you start from 0 again. And in this game, after full clearing his top side, and in most games, he'll look for a gank first off, and then for an invade if there's no gank available. So mid lane isn't exactly able to accept a gank right now. Sylas is pretty chunked out, and then top lane, like we mentioned, Kayle doesn't really want attention early on because if it goes bad, Camille snowballs. So he looks for the invade, knowing that he's stronger with the red buff, and seeing that Amumu started on the bot side. And this is a slightly unfortunate ward timing that Amumu sees him drop the ward, and with the priority in lane, or lack thereof, for Rengar, he just has to leave because they threaten the collapse and he doesn't want to risk that. But he still sticks around just to kind of bully the Amumu and see if he can get anything cheesy off of this, but he's spotted out again. So instead he walks up and he just takes the scuttle, knowing that he's stronger than the Amumu and that he will win the 1v1. And Lucian starts to walk over to contest at this point, but he finishes the scuttle, and then Lucian has to get out of there. He's in a very bad spot if Sylas and Rengar collapse on him, and so he has to give up the roam and just go back to mid lane. And with the priority in mid now, Rengar gets to go over and double scuttle, so he gets the bottom scuttle crab as well, which is pretty huge for early jungling to be able to secure both of those. And he has bottom priority here, and so Amumu no way can contest the bottom scuttle. If we look at the result of this early pathing, Amumu's only option is to go and try to invade Rengar's Krugs. That's really all he can do on the map. There's no gank opportunity top or mid. He can't dive at this point. But for Rengar, he has his entire bottom side available for him to clear. And so this is going to be, if nothing else, a huge farm advantage. And Amumu does go for the invade on the Krugs, and he's kind of isolating the Kayle in the top lane. And Kayle, unfortunately, she mispositions and ends up getting killed here because Camille is able to collapse, and she tries to face check when Kayle tries to face check the Amumu there. But Rengar gets to full clear his bottom side jungle and has a pretty big lead in terms of early game farming, getting both of those scuttle crabs. And Amumu overstays on the top side. He greeds for the Krugs. He's not paying attention to Kayle's TP, and she gets to pick up the kill. And knowing that Amumu is off the map, Scrubnoob gets complete agency over the bottom half of the map at this point. So he can look for an invade, he can look for a gank in mid or in bottom, he can look at the dragon, and look how he keeps his stacks up here. He wards over the wall and jumps to get another stack by hitting the scrying orb, and then he keeps his passive stacks up on the raptors and then gets just an easy kill on the Lucian, who was pushed up, chunked out, and then can't escape. He has no escape in that situation. And so it's just really good opportunistic play from Scrubnoob, knowing he can do whatever he wants on the bottom half of the map, keeping his stacks up and then executing. So with his first back, he picks up the Iron Spike, Whip, and Boots. So Boots help him get around the map a lot faster, so he's much more mobile than Amumu is right now. And Iron Spike Whip just really helps out his clear on his top side. So Raptors and Krugs are a lot more accessible than they were. He can farm efficiently any side of the map, so he's not limited as much to one side that he wants to be on. And now, even without priority, he feels stronger than the Amumu. He knows that Lucian has priority, but he doesn't panic. There's not really much CC between the two of them except Amumu Q. He holds his cleanse and he just walks away, knowing that he has a little bit of time to kill before the red buff spawns anyway. And as he's taking his red buff, Scrubnoob knows that Amumu and him started on the same or on opposite sides of the map. So Amumu's red buff is coming up at the same time. And now a lot of people would just normally go top and they would try and take the Krugs and clear a full quadrant. But instead he goes into the bot side. And this is partially because the wave is pushing back into Kayle, so she can just farm safely, let it push, she's not threatened. And bot lane on Scrubnoob's side is pushing. They have priority, they're playing aggressively, and so this helps to deny any opportunities Amumu has to influence that lane. And furthermore, he knows the ward timing and he knows that he's stronger at this point in the game. He has the red buff, he would be able to bully Amumu off of it. And so he's just controlling the bottom side of the map. And this lines up perfectly with a large wave being crashed in bot lane. And so he lines that up with a turret dive. Ezreal's super low, tries to stay and catch the wave, ends up dying, and then they convert this into a second kill as well on the Nami. And they deny an entire wave and a half to the Ezreal, which is huge in the early game. Kai'Sa now has 3 kills. And Amumu gets to come down, he counter ganks, and so they clean up. Camille commits the teleport into the bottom lane. But at the end of the day, this is a lot worse for Ezreal than anything else. That it kind of takes him out of the game, and it's not that bad for Rengar or for the Kai'Sa. They still get pretty big advantages off that. And also in the end result, Kayle gets to crash this wave top lane. So now she has a farm lead on the Camille in a lane that she shouldn't be winning. But when Camille leaves, she gets to crash the wave, fix it, and have it bounce back to her. And also will have TP advantage when it comes back up. And now the supports are roaming into mid, which is kind of a standard play. Sylas dies, unfortunately, because the Nami matched the roam. It's kind of standard play. But look at what Scrubnoob does. He looks for opportunities to catch the support out roaming back to bot lane. And he chunks her out really hard right here and is able to just position really aggressively. And he might bite off a little bit more than he can chew. Lucian plays it pretty well mechanically to kite him out. And he still almost gets a kill and even a double kill in that 2v3 situation. I think that he could have just attacked the Amumu and gotten the guaranteed 1 kill, but if you're the best Rengar in the world, you're going to force those plays, you're going to play aggressively, and it doesn't always go well, but he saw the window and he took it. Doesn't always work out, that's okay. He moves on and pats back out towards his bot side. And now Rengar has full priority mid and bot. Sylas crashes the wave in mid and looks for a roam, and then bot lane actually gets to just crash a huge wave. And now Amumu shows on the top side and contesting the gank or the roam onto Camille, and this is just a green light for Rengar to go ahead and solo the dragon for free. Priority bottom, Lucian and Amumu are top, and there's no threat, and so he immediately pulls the trigger and goes ahead and solos the Drake for his team to get those objectives and start rolling. And then he is again looking for roams between lanes, and then Lucian comes to get a ward, and then he's lying in wait, picks up the kill, and it's on to Sylas. It's a 1-for-1 trade, which is a little bit of a bummer, but this is really good for Sylas. He gets to crash the wave, gets complete control, and is just going to be ahead in that lane, in a lane that Lucian needs to win early on. He needs to use that advantage to get ahead, and so if he isn't able to do that, Sylas definitely comes out ahead in the long run. And here we see another way that Scrubnoob uses his ult to clean up fights. He's using it to close fights from a long range, kind of like a Warwick W, of getting move speed across the map to clean up things at the end. So he picks up the kill on Nami, and they're able to crash the wave. And by crashing an extra wave, they force Ezreal to stay on the map, while Kai'Sa and Seraphine actually get to come out on the map and start pushing waves. And Ezreal wants to back, but he has to stay and collect this next wave, or he would lose out quite a bit relative to the other AD carry, and he's already starved. He's already 30 CS behind, so he needs to stay on the map to collect this wave. And now Scrubnoob is kind of into farm mode. He is trying to go ahead and get pretty soon his Gore Drinker, and he is also building into the Ravenous Hydra, and so he's clearing a lot towards top side, but then that all changes when Kayle dies. So once Kayle dies, he knows there's not really much to do on the top side of the map other than his buff, so he transitions to contesting the red buff that he has a timer on. And also, all three of his teammates that are alive are on the bot side, and so he decides to go down, pressure the red buff, and play around where his team is and where he has pressure. Instead of going up into the weak side that is top, he would just be getting farm, but he knows he can get a bigger advantage than that. And again, the Amumu abuse, they pick up the kill here, but then he has to get out because there's the full collapse from the enemy team. And this is a really kind of impressive use of just skill on the Rengar. Of he knows his damage. He fakes like he's running away, but then turns on the Ezreal. He knows that the Nami ultimate is down. He knows his damage perfectly. Has just played this champion so much. It's really impressive how he can pick the exact fights that he wants. And so they fake as if they're running away, and Ezreal thinks that he's safe and he can walk up to the wave, but then boom, there's a cat right on top of his face stabbing him. And it's just really, really clever pick setup from Scrubnoob. And here he resets. There's not really much else to do. He can't invade the red buff right now. There's no camps on the bottom side. And he has his completed Ravenous Hydra now. And so that's a pretty big spike for him. And he sits on the Iron Spike Whip until later to get the Gore Drinker. So that tells me that originally he just gets it for the clear, to help his clearing on his camps, to be a little bit more efficient there. But then he goes straight into the full Ravenous Hydra as his first major power spike in terms of just combat stats. And Kayle dies up in the top lane, unfortunately, and what he does is he goes up and he catches the wave. He gets the XP and he gets the gold. Instead of finishing his Krugs, he leaves that because the minions are dying to turret. And so there's only a limited amount of time that he can get the XP and the gold from the minions. The Krugs will still be there once he gets back. And so that's always a good thing if there's a wave nearby to go fix it and catch that before it dies and then come back. And by catching the wave at turret, he actually fixes the wave for the Kayle. If he didn't catch it at the turret, it would have pushed back towards Camille. But because he did a full reset, it's now frozen in the middle, which is much more favorable for his team. And so look for opportunities to fix the wave. I mean, if nobody's going to get the XP, if nobody's going to get the gold, it's okay for you to take it. Ignore people pinging you off. Always catch waves at the turrets, or else that's just wasted gold, wasted XP that nobody is getting. And now all eyes are on the Drake, and there are a few different setup factors. Amumu used his ult to kill Kayle about a minute and a half ago, and so he knows that that won't be up. And Camille has TP up, but nobody on Rengar's team is able to match it. They don't have any TPs. And so Sylas starts walking up, but he pings him to come to Drake instead because they know that they need all 5 members there, because if they send Sylas up top, Camille will have the TP advantage and they can win the 4v5, and then they wouldn't end up getting the Drake. And so this is just really a lot of processing that he's going through. And because they get the Sylas to come down, they know Mumu has no ultimate, which is a really big cooldown. They end up with an uncontested Drake. They get that for free, and there's not really much damage done. But if they sent somebody up without TP, Camille could have come in and forced a 5v4 for the other team's advantage. And now Seraphine gets caught out, unfortunately. And right now, here they make a decision that they can't contest the push because they have Herald, they have no Seraphine, and instead they decide to commit to the side lane, where they collapse on the Camille and they pick up the kill there instead of contesting the Herald. And this is kind of a cool play, where if you can't contest something like a Drake or an objective or a team fight, you give that up and look for something else on the weak side of the map. And right here, Camille greeted, and she believed that she was safe, but she wasn't, and they just get a free kill on the collapse. And they lose a turret that they were going to lose anyway. They don't really miss out on anything. And now they're setting up a play on the top side. Amumu was shown walking bottom, and Lucian is bottom now, and it's just an open window for Rengar to go counter jungle. He's picking up every single one of these windows. He's going in, he's taking farm. And now he's hovering around top, setting up a play. He's shadowing the Sylas, crashing this wave, hoping that the Camille will come up and contest this. And as she walks up, she misses her E, and that's just a green light. She, at that point, only has the ultimate, no real ability to get out of this, and it's just a very easy kill. The downside, though, here is that they don't ward. They don't get vision control on the top side, and so they take backs that are a little bit greedy, and then the enemy team is just able to collapse. Amumu gets a huge 3-person ult. If they had vision, they could have walked away and gotten safer backs. They would have seen the collapse, but instead, they just get punished really hard for going on this Camille and for not respecting the engage range and not seeing this coming from the other team. And now we just have Scrubnoob roaming around the map looking for more pick opportunities and really pressuring the Amumu. They have a person advantage, and so they're looking for ways to push this lead more. And they're counter jungling at the same time. Amumu can't even walk into his own jungle right now. And KL plays a little bit too aggressively and gets punished for that. They trade 1-for-1, so Amumu's down for the KL. And at this point, Drake is spawning in less than a minute, and Scrubnoob has his Gore Drinker, which is his next just huge power spike that he's going to have a lot of team fight potential. And he gets this just in time for the dragon that's going to be coming up. Just a lot of healing, a lot of ability haste that he's going to have in the next fight. And the way that his team wants to play this is to get a pick beforehand. They want to get one pick, they want to find one target to burst down to have a 4v5. Whereas the other team wants a clean team fight. They want a 5v5 to use the Amumu ultimate, just really impactful ults. And so that's how they want to play it. And unfortunately, Scrubnoob just they got back on the map a little bit late, and he's forced to use his W and then his flash and ult as well to make sure that he isn't picked. He just doesn't have enough vision, not enough information to know whether or not he can be bursted there. So he has to use the flash to make sure that he's up for this dragon fight. Otherwise, it could be a really just big disadvantage for his team straight away. And now Kale is backing, and she's going to TP in. And this team fight setup, Sylas is kind of looking for a flank while the other 4 are up towards the dot brush. And Amumu walks up and zones off the whole team while the rest of them collapse on the Sylas, which is kind of a bad way to start off the fight. But then Scrubnoob comes in, and they have to start backing away from the Amumu. But then he jumps in with Kale ultimate, zones the entire backline of the enemy team, and then turns right back around to peel his own carries and to get some kills and to turn around the fight. Then Ezreal actually flash E's in on top of him, and the Gore Drinker just completely destroys the enemy team. He heals a just boatload and is able to turn this fight, and then it turns into the perfect scenario for Rengar, where he's chasing people down, turning the fight very, very scrappy at the end. So it's really impressive how he navigated this team fight. They even started off with a person disadvantage. Sylas gets picked before the fight even starts, but then he dives the backline to zone the enemy damage from blowing up his carries, and then he turns and peels basically his own backline by killing the divers, and then it just turns into a really scrappy fight from there. Heals up a lot with the Gore Drinker, and just really impressive how he's able to adapt in real time in these fights and to know exactly what he should be doing at any given moment. And also in that fight, it can't be understated that he uses that central dot brush as a means to navigate around the team fight. And so fighting around bushes is just central to what made him successful in that fight. And now we're approaching the final fight that's going to be around Baron. And so how they're setting up for this is first getting vision control, then baiting Baron, and then spreading the enemy team out to get a pick. This is how their team wants to operate. Like we mentioned, they want to get picks before the fights. And so they use vision to make that happen. Control vision, bait Baron, and then turn and try to get a pick on the enemy team. Try to capitalize on any sort of uncoordination. And the reason why they're just baiting this and not full committing is that Camille is in the side lane and has TP, whereas Kayle, when she's answering her, doesn't have TP to join. And so Kayle would have to walk all the way up to make sure that this doesn't turn into a 4v5 fight. So they really are just baiting and trying to get a pick so that they can actually take the Baron, and they're making sure that they don't get TP'd on, have a 5v4 if Kayle isn't able to join. The Baron contest kind of stalls out, and so Rengar goes and he's just clearing his camps on his bottom side. And they must have seen him because then the blue team starts up the Baron. And so he's on the other side of the map and has to run all the way across to contest it. And the end result, I mean, it's a very scrappy fight. So Sylas goes in and is able to buy quite a bit of time on the contest, and then it's drawn out long enough that Scrubnoob can get into the fight. Camille TP's in, and Kayle isn't able to match, as we saw earlier. And it just so happens that now the fight is split up enough, and there's enough damage already down that it's a pretty easy cleanup for Scrubnoob. That he ends up getting several kills. They kill 4 people and they only lose 3, which is really favorable when you consider that they didn't even have Kayle in that fight. So they did a great job of splitting everybody up and then just having Scrubnoob come in, play cleanup. And the most important part of this is that by not TPing in, Kayle actually gets 2 full turrets, which is really huge because she wasn't able to join the fight and she just continued pushing. So if you're in a side lane when your team is fighting and you aren't able to join, commit to what you're doing. Don't try walking all the way across the map because the fight's already going to be over by the time you get there. Instead, commit to the split push, get whatever you can out of that fight, and then hope that the rest of it goes well like it did here. And now Scrubnoob is 11-3, he's just really strong. And they saw the Nami ultimate used, and I think that's what was the green light for him to run in, knowing that their major disengage tool is down, and Kayle ultimate is available, but she wasn't with him when he jumped in. But then a just huge Seraphine ultimate and then follow up really splits the fight, and Kai'Sa dives into the backline, still has the Kayle ult available, and is able to just clean everything up. And this results in a 4-for-1 trade, and so Scrubnoob did a good job of absorbing quite a bit of pressure. The Kayle ult wasn't on him, and so he got blown up pretty quickly, but the team was able to respond to the pressure that he created, and then they end up winning that fight, and they just get a surrender vote at that point, and they end up closing this game. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope that you learned something new and that you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if there's another high elo one trick that I should analyze and break down their gameplay. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.